honored to be here once again. I think it's a great partnership. I'm sure, like all participants, will agree with me that this has been a very successful exercise, and I'm sure this is the first step to a greater exercise in many, many years to come. And once again, I'd like to thank Professor Aditya and the team from SUTD iTrust for co-hosting this exercise. And I'm sure all of us had a great time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel. Okay, everyone, I'm going to share my slides and then we'll move on to the presentation. Just hold on for a moment. Okay, I think the slides are being shared. Okay, members of red teams, blue teams, green teams, judges, NRF and MINDEF. Thank you very much for making this event possible. This was a 2-week event, and without the help of and the participation of all these members from red, blue, green teams, judges, and support from
restricted. So how do we actually do the restrictions? Basically, looking at to identify this device. It's coming as a session, but
somebody forgot to mute their mic.
Okay, so thank you very much. Now, there's a large group of individuals who were involved here in iTrust in order to make this event successful. And this is a list of about 18 people here who helped in making sure that the event moves smoothly forward. This group includes those who designed the software that some of you used indirectly, unknowingly, as well as the detectors, as well as those who were always ready to schedule meetings for this event. This is a list of 5 students who actually developed software. I want to name them one by one. Yu Hui created the attack logger. Yang Zi did twin virtualization for the digital twin. Madhumita developed a special detector called Super Detector. Joshen worked with Ivan Lee on Zycron, and Li Yuan worked on AR/VR for ICS. There was a lot of infrastructure that was used. As you know, the SWAT secure water treatment plant was used because the red teams attacked it. In addition, the red teams came in through Zycron Super Cyber City, and this Cyber City is quite a complex system. As you can see here, it consists of 8 servers, CCTV system, network printer, 150 virtual firewall CCTV printers, switches. There were several user terminals, accounts, DNS server, DHCP server, email server, FTP server, etc., etc., and roughly 10,000 IPs. It also has 2 ICS honeypots. One is the digital twin, and the other is a special honeypot also built in iTrust. These 2 honeypots are part of Zycron Cyber City, and several red teams were they got stuck in these honeypots. The software infrastructure includes PlantViz, which was used for visualization of SWOT. All the states of SWOT are visualized. The Plant.io, which hosts various anomaly detectors. There was an attack logger. There was an alert logger. Then there's a player and data analyzer, which is used outside of the event for the analysis of data, and you will see some of that analysis later today. And then there was a digital twin for SWOT that was also part of the honeypot. This is the list of detectors that were used. The detectors on the left side are all the ones developed in iTrust: Aegis, AICRIT, Attester, DAD, Hivebond, StephNet, StephFi, and Super Detector. And on the right hand side, we have 5 commercial detectors which came into iTrust for this event specially to be tested. We had a total of 84 attackers, 32 defenders, 4 external judges, and a team of 18 from iTrust. So total participation here was 138 people. There were 17 red teams and 15 blue teams. Let me now talk a little bit about the data that has been collected. We have 9,039 gigabytes in 5,777 files of PCAP data. We have OT data, which is about 113 megabytes in 18 Excel files. Each file has about 60 features. For normal and attack mode, we have about 88 hours of data, and only for the attack mode, we have 73 hours of data. For the advancement of science and engineering of critical infrastructure defense, and in accordance with ITRUST policy, all data suitably and anonymized will be made public soon after all blue teams have completed and reported to ITRUST their data analysis. Now I'll talk about the actual data. You can see here in this graph, this bar chart shows you the attacks that were launched on each day, starting from July 27th morning till August 7th evening or afternoon. So for example, 3 attacks were launched on day 1 in the morning, about 4 attacks on day 2, and so on. July 29 p.m. and August 4 a.m. was the maximum number of attacks. As the red teams probably know, each attack after it was launched, several attempts were made in order to update the attacks. So the total number of attacks actually, which includes updated attacks, is 2,480. And you can see here on January 30, there are about 250 updates. And similarly on August 4th a.m., there were about 240 updates. So the total number is quite large, and this is going to be a significant challenge for ITRUST to analyze the data, especially the alarms that were generated in response to these attacks. We also looked at the success and failure of attacks. 50.8% of the attacks were successful, 22% failed, and for 27% it was unclear whether we should count them as failure or success. Eventually the judges did count them as failure or success, but that is not shown here in this pie chart. Here's a list of sample attacks. There were many different types of attacks, but I have just listed a few here. Exploit DB Rockwell factory clock view. There was a constant attack, which means that a value of one of the state variables was set to a constant value. Man in the middle attack, denial of service attack, gradual bias. Gradual bias is an attack where the measurements from a sensor are gradually increased by the attacker. There was a chatter attack, which means that a pump or a valve was closed and opened or started or turned off rapidly. Then there was an eternal blue attack, password attack, and there was an attack for stopping the control system of the plant. So these are a few sample attacks that were launched by the red teams. I'll now mention 2 devastating impacts that we witnessed during the 2-week exercise. In one of the attacks, PLC-1 was stopped by moving it into test mode. This resulted in stopping the plant, and it took plant operators and engineers about 30 minutes to discover and fix the problem and bring the plant back into operation. Control logic had to be reloaded into the PLC. Another devastating impact was plant flooding. Control was taken over PLC. Water level in tank T101 kept rising. Inlet valve MV101 had to be closed manually, but water level continued to rise as there is another inflow from stage 6 of the plant. Panic set in and multiple engineers joined hands to stop the flooding. Fortunately, water did not overflow the tank because there were engineers who were manually getting the water out of the tank. As a precautionary measure, electric power had to be shut off to avoid short-circuiting the PLC racks. It took about 40 minutes to get the plant back up. Let me now focus on alarms and alerts. Now, data is sent to each detector once every second. Alarms are generated by each detector are recorded, and alarms reported here have not been analyzed so far. So we do not know whether an alarm is a true or a false positive. this is going to take some time for us to do. Also, a sequence of identical alarms is considered as one alert. So for example, if a detector generated 5 alarms, one every second, but they were identical, then we count them as one alert. Thus, the number of number of alarms generated is much greater than the number of alerts reported here. So here is the bar chart for the total alerts generated. I have removed the detectors here. So the detectors are simply labeled as A, B, C, and so on. But those that the blue teams, all the blue teams that are mentioned here from A to M, will be given all the data for analysis. So notice, for example, that team J generated more than 40,000 alerts. Now remember, this is just alerts. The number of alarms is much higher than this number. Other teams were much lower, about 10,000 for team A, about 8,000 or so for team B, and so on. The size of each bar should not be considered in any way as representing the performance of the detector. For example, it does not necessarily mean that a large bar means that the detector was very good in detecting the attacks, and a small bar does not mean the detector was also not very good in detecting the attacks. That depends a lot on exactly when the alarms were generated and what were the alarms and so on. There were 2 types of attacks that were launched, an IT attack and an OT attack. An IT attack is a network attack in an attempt to get to SWAT. Most of the IT attacks seem to be exploratory. An OT attack is one where success in getting into the plant and attempting to manipulate the plant state. Most of the attacks, as you can see here, were IT attacks. 97.3% IT attacks and the remaining OT attacks. This happened, I believe, primarily because most of the attackers had to, almost every attacker, of course, had to go through Zytron, and it took them quite some time and effort to actually arrive at SWAT. So all those attacks were IT attacks. After they arrived at SWAT, they took quite some time in order to navigate the network inside SWAT before they could actually get to a pump or a valve or a PLC. And therefore, it took quite some time for the attackers to really get to OT, and therefore the OT attacks is a small number. Attack targets, there were many attack targets, and here are some attack targets which are given. Most of the attack targets were unspecified. By that we mean that the attackers did not really tell us what are they going to attack. And then there were attacks on level sensors, valves, the plant itself, pumps, SCADA, PLCs. Then somebody said we want to attack everything. The historian, valve MV101, FIT101, DPIT301, conductivity meter. These are the most common targets, unspecified because people did not tell us what they want to attack. The level sensors, pumps, and PLCs. We have the numbers for each, but unfortunately this is the highest number, and therefore I'm not giving you the numbers for these, which are relatively small. I'll now mention 3 notable cyber physical attacks. These cyber physical attacks were launched by the 3 teams that are the winners in this exercise. I'm going to first read out the cyber physical attacks so that you know what were the capabilities of the red teams. Attack C is by the team that is number 3 in this competition. They managed to affect every major operational process in SWAT and were nice enough to revert their attacks to not cause plant damage. They affected water quality in chemical dosing processes by switching on the pumps. These are the chemical dosing pumps. They used varied attack vectors, HMI logics. They increased the alkalinity of water by affecting the sodium NaOCl dosing in stage 2, not 3, sorry. Multi-stage attack by triggering consequent flooding in stage 1. This was one of the notable attacks. Another notable attack was by team that was number 2 in this ranking. This team displayed a deep understanding of the plant's OT and IT systems at the process level. 2 attack vectors were used to disrupt the stage 1 process in HMI and PyLogic. They switched on pump P101 via PyCom while forcing motorized valve MV101 to stay closed, thereby building catastrophic amounts of water pressure in the pipes that could potentially burst them. They spoofed flow meter readings in conjunction to satisfy the PLC's safety conditions. Finally, the winning team established persistent access on SCADA system via RDP. They modified the programmable logic controller's code using ladder logic and structured text to insert malicious tag in stage 1. This is not easy to do. The tag modified the level sensor values and motorized valves values to cause flooding if unmonitored. The PLC tags were also read and modified via PyCom as a separate attack vector. This was effectively equivalent to a man-in-the-middle attack, where the operator sees a safe value on the HMI, while the PLC uses tempered values. Thank you for listening so far. I'm now going to request Colonel Edwards to announce the winners. Colonel Edwards.
It's a great pleasure. And the second runner-up is the third team.
Yes.
Yes. So JMNK. Okay, congratulations. The second team is from KPMG. And last but not least, the top team is Kopitiam. Congratulations once again.
So congratulations to all the teams. Mark will be in touch with all the team members for the awards. Dear friends, planning for CISS 2021 has begun. I trust will be working very closely with MINDEF, Colonel Chen, and we need your input to make the next CISS even better. These slides will be made public, and Mark is sending you the link so that you can offer your feedback. Your feedback is extremely important. So thank you very much. In case you have any questions regarding this presentation, please send an email to Mark or to iTrust, and we will try our best to answer your questions. Again, thank you very much for being here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you, everyone.